order the Truckee Meadows Water Authority Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, April 20th. We will start with a roll call. Madam Clerk. Here.
Here.
Here?
Here.
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 All right, thank you so much. Ms. Jardin, would you lead us in the pledge this morning?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got tongue-tied. Madam Clerk, public comment. And thank you, by the way, Ms. Jardin. I appreciate that. Do we have anyone signed in wishing to speak? I have no cards. Okay, we will close. Is there anyone wishing to speak under public comment at this time? All right, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Board comments or acknowledgements? Anything from anyone right now? Okay, all right, very good. Close item number 4. I'd go to item number 5, approval of the agenda. Does anyone want to take anything out of order?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Dare, second by Dewar. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment on this? No. Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the board. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 6, approval of the minutes for March 16th, 2022. Items 1 through, for the Tumwa Board of Directors, are there any emendations on those minutes?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Okay.
I think it's on item 7. I commend the minute taker, and I think that's you, Sonia, for capturing. I mean, it's a several page recordation. I did not go back and listen to the video. It seemed like there might have been something missing, but I wasn't sure, and I guess I was gonna ask Commissioner Hill. But did you think it captured it?
I did watch the video because I was curious about the motion. And I think it did because there was a lot of back and forth discussion.
Right.
But there was no confirmation of a date, and I don't remember the minutes stating that there was a date for awarding.
There wasn't.
Okay, so yeah, that was my big question when I was reviewing. It's ironic that you bring this up because I was looking at that last night, but no, I didn't see any changes that
Okay,
were
good.
needed, so.
Because I know we went back and forth and we amended the
did.
motion a couple times
did.
and all of that, and, I appreciate that, the effort to capture our conversation, so thank you. I have no amendations.
Okay, no emendations. Looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Jardin, second by Hill. I'm assuming that there's no public comment on this item. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us now to, we're not quite at item number 7. It's a item number asterisk. We have attorney-client conference, and so we are going to go into recess. We're going to go into the room on the side here, and then we will be back as soon as we can. I'm sorry I can't give you any particular time. Okay, we are in recess. Going to open our meeting back up from recess, and that now takes us to item number 7, presentation of the results of the anonymous survey asking all employees to identify key attributes and/or experience they would like to see in their next general manager, have the next general manager possesses. Okay, Ms. Atkinson?
Good morning. For the record, Jessica Atkinson, HR Manager. I think Sonia's going to pull up a presentation there. During the March meeting, the board approved staff moving forward with an anonymous all-employee survey requesting feedback on the key attributes and/or qualifications they would like to see in the next general manager. On March 22nd, an open-ended single-question survey was indeed distributed using SurveyMonkey. The survey was open for a 2-week period of time, closing on April 6th. While open, staff sent several reminders to employees assuring anonymity and asking them to participate. In total, 81 responses were received. They are all attached to your staff report in their entirety. As a single open-ended question in SurveyMonkey, the analysis do not really produce meaningful results. So what staff did to help kind of depict the information is we compiled all the responses and ran them through a word cloud application to provide a sense of frequency of words used throughout the survey. And as you can see from the word cloud, some words that stand out are Tumwa, culture, experience, community, knowledge, and management. Regarding culture, the word was mentioned in 21 responses, and several of those responses were positive mentions of culture and/or maintaining the current culture at Tumwa. In addition to running the responses through the word cloud, staff identified 5 management categories that were contained in many of the responses. These include leading change, leading people, achieving results, business acumen, and resource management. And then there were 2 additional themes that also came out, and those were a desire for the candidate to be experienced in or knowledgeable about issues impacting Northern Nevada, and a desire for the candidate to possess local or regional familiarity or connection. So by connecting each response to the appropriate category, staff was able to create a chart to depict the overarching themes or categories of importance to employees. And I'd like to note that many of the responses covered several of those areas or topics there. When that happens, so for example, if a response indicated leading change and achieving results, both were noted and logged for the purpose of the chart. As you can see, the overwhelming characteristic employees want to see in the next Tumwa general manager is leadership, specifically leading people. The second largest category was business acumen, followed by resource management, achieving results, leading change, and then knowledge of Northern Nevada issues and local regional familiarity. So this chart is intended just to assist in depicting the responses to the key categories mentioned. The full report and full responses are attached to the staff report. This item is an informational item, so no action is required. However, I'm happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Ms. Chardon?
Thank you very much. Mine is just a comment to say, what a great response. I mean, to me, I always value comments versus numeric, sort of, because those can be very subjective. This is great. I'm impressed by the volume of the responses, and these are comments that can be mined as you have done in this word cloud and the pie charts, and this is great stuff. I just thank you, and kudos to everybody that participated. This is a great response.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dare.
Yes.
You were there, and then Ms. Stewart.
Thank you. 81 answered. How many did not answer?
So we have approximately 230 employees.
Okay.
So it's about 30% response rate, which is pretty decent for a voluntary survey, yeah.
Totally,
absolutely.
especially for timing and everything. Okay, very good. That was my main question. And like I said, in looking at this, it's always nice to get a little bit of a report card back from personal people and giving their insight. So I've read every one of them, and I appreciate it. So thank you all. I know everyone in this room filled it out, didn't you? I thought so. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Stewart?
Yeah, I had similar comments. I had already calculated that it was about 30% because I had a rough idea of how many work here. And I thought that was a good turnout for this kind of survey. I too, like Councilwoman Jordan, I really appreciate the personal writing, because it's a better expression than a number on how you feel. The only thing I didn't get, that could be a nuance, and not that I'm looking for that, but if a person said, for example, honest, experience, compassion, just the first thing I saw on my page, are they saying like Mark is, or are they saying different from Mark is? You know, I didn't know relative, I didn't know how to put it in perspective, because I assume all these good features, personable, easy to approach, accessible, also reflect Mark. And so if they say, you know, I don't know, I'm just looking for one that might be something different. It's harder to interpret. I believe Tumwa's next GM should be able to demonstrate excellent knowledge of water utility industry. This person should have knowledge of, and it goes on and on and on, familiarity with. Well, again, that was a pretty long write-up, but I felt like that probably did describe Mark. And I didn't know if they were just basically trying to say in a continuation of Mark's, some of Mark's characteristics, or if they were saying in addition to, you know, it was hard for me to evaluate it in terms of any kind of change of direction or a continuation of a direction. Do you have a feel for that?
You know, unless the respondent specifically addressed that and commented in it, then I don't have a feel for it. You know, I don't know who provided these responses to
Right.
even have a, you know, a background. That's why when I categorized them, we created those leadership kind of categories, leading people, and then we would take a response like that and just categorize it as far as the quality
I
of
like
the
how
leader.
you did that.
Yeah.
Let me give you another one. Here's one, number 18, neutral and respectful of our existing culture. Well, here's my question. How do we apply this to, as we're interviewing the candidates, you know, do they verbally say, we're respectful of the Tumwa culture, we've heard it's great, if they're out-of-state candidate, let's say? Some of these, I just wasn't sure, just to my colleagues, of how to translate this into our search process.
So, when we get to the interview process, I do have a guide that will be part of the interview packets with the leadership competencies, and specifically the first 5 that were on.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can go.
No, I have them here.
The first 5 that were up there, and kind of really framing that out, building it out a little bit more to understand what those are. And then some of the suggested questions that will be proposed as far as interview questions will be based along these competencies and questions, so that we can mine into that. And then I think really just kind of understanding the overarching theme, that number 1 being leading people is
Yeah.
what came out. So ensuring that the questions are mining from the candidates' leadership qualities and traits, I think will cover potentially what you're
Well,
talking
really,
about.
really good, really helpful. So thank you.
Okay. So I'm gonna jump in here just real quickly. I took a completely different tact. I don't take offense to this, Mr. Forey. I didn't think about you on this. No, I thought about what would the new general manager look like, and the culture, while it's assisted by the general manager. I don't think the culture within Tumwa completely comes from the general manager. Each department head is allowed to be somewhat autonomous, at least the way that I've watched the organization run. It's a machine. It has lots of moving parts. And this is not spoken in the pejorative about you, Mr. Forey. I just looked at things like, you know, interpersonal skills, visionary leadership, strategy and development, and team building. That's just those are qualifications that this person is looking for in the new manager. So that's how I took it. So I sort of took a different tact. So and I thought that they were overall very positive. It was, you know, I didn't see a lot of disparaging remarks. I was impressed with that. Hold on just a second, Mr. Anderson. The floor is yours.
Yeah, actually, what's funny is I took it totally different from both of you. So
you go.
for me, what was funny is I looked at it from if I were answering these questions, how would I answer it depending on my position in that organization? And the way that I looked at it was, if I thought it was broken, I would say, it's broken. We need to change direction, and here's where I think we can make those changes. So for me, to be perfectly honest, over the last couple of years, we've seen a decline in overall enjoyment in people's workplace environments and such. And I saw just the opposite of this in these answers. People that enjoy where they're working, they want to see it continue to be successful into the future. So for me, I was actually pleasantly surprised that, wow, out of these people that are about 30% of the working group, in my opinion, my take was, things are working well. We want to make sure that whoever this next leader is continues to bring us down that path. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Mr. Dare?
Yeah, and I do apologize, I was not at the last meeting. I was in DC doing my work as a city councilman, so it's what we were doing. But I got to read through everything and listen to the conversation, and then looking at this, I actually agree with Paul. Actually, I found that because we lead other boards and they don't always come out like this. If we asked everybody what they thought, we would see sometimes some landmines that are trying to point us in the direction. But I see a lot of who we are and what I know Tumwa to be in the last 6 years come through. It confirmed what I know Tumwa is. And so to me, I was actually very pleased, and I really do appreciate everyone who's part of it. But I can tell you the message, to me, I saw that it's a combination. It's something that the leadership now has created, but it also is an excitement and actually an optimism for what will happen tomorrow. So I think it's a good combo, but I agree. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? This is not an action item. Well done.
Is Alexis still on?
I don't know. Alexis?
Yes, I'm here. I'm coming in the room, so I'll be right there.
Okay.
Wow, that was impressive. Such a name, and there you were.
We didn't know if we were on this item of the,
Well, I so appreciate that you did this survey. I thank you so much. And I really, yes, want to thank the employees who took the time. People wrote a lot, and I enjoyed reading all of their comments and started to do my own categorization of themes. And so thank you for trying to do that as well. So thank you to the employees for giving us your feedback. We really care and we want to listen to you. And I'm excited that there's so much optimism about Tumwa. We have that too on the board. We're very excited about the future of Tumwa. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So I'll close item number 7 if there is no more discussion, and we'll take it into item number 8, discussion and possible direction from the board regarding employee climate survey. Jessica, the floor is yours still. And I will just tell the board, just because I think it's important, we're going to lose Ms. Jarden at 11:30.
yeah.
All right, so this is another one that advances from the March meeting. It was requested during that meeting that staff bring back information about timing and other considerations regarding a possible employee climate study for the board's consideration. So before going into survey considerations and logistics, I wanted to provide some background information that the board may wish to consider in determining whether it would like to move ahead with an all-employee climate survey. And if it is determined that an all-employee climate survey is necessary, the ending slides will provide information about the logistics. Tumwa currently obtains formal feedback from employees through exit interviews, traditional suggestion box submissions, which can be submitted anonymously, electronic submissions of questions and comments prior to all employee meetings, which are anonymous unless the individual identifies themselves in the text, roundtable question and answer sessions at the end of each all-employee meeting. We have options for electronic submissions of safety suggestions and concerns that also has a anonymous component to it. And then ad hoc surveys on specific topics. So examples include in 2020, we did a COVID climate study, and then the general manager desired attributes survey that was presented to you as the last agenda item. And then additionally, each year, as you guys are aware, we do a executive leadership participates in an anonymous online survey related to the general manager's performance, which is turned over to the board for review and consideration, and also provides open-ended comments and feedback at that. Some additional points the board may wish to consider on this item is that over half of TOMO's employees are in positions covered by a collective bargaining agreement. And this is important for consideration because terms impacting such thing as pay, benefits, grievance procedures, those are all addressed through the collective bargaining process. And as this 50% being covered by the collective bargaining agreement pertains to feedback, it provides a mechanism for escalating issues or providing feedback. Covered employees can obviously come directly to us with their concerns or issues, but if there was some sort of issue or concern that they didn't feel comfortable doing that, they could do so through their representatives. Another point is the feedback received from employees, as you guys pointed out in the survey that we conducted. And then some other key indicators of employee satisfaction and morale can be seen in voluntary exits and formal grievances. So I wanted to provide a little information there. In the context of employee retention, we looked at employee exits in 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Stripped out exits that were related to service retirements and medical retirements, and stripped out exits that were related to those hired in seasonal positions. We have a lot that come in the summer to participate in our water watching program. And so in 2019, we had 2 voluntary exits. In 2020, we had 1 voluntary exit and 2 involuntary exits. 2021, we had 4 voluntary separations. And to date, in 2022, we've only had 2 voluntary separations. And this equates to less than 2% in each of these years, which I think is significant because this is during a time that employers are facing increased turnover as a result of the pandemic and the great resignation that we hear about. So I thought those numbers would be important to share with you guys. We also looked at formal grievances filed during the same period of time. That was 2019 through 2022. And we have a record of 4 formal grievances filed during that period of time. 2019 to 2022.
Thank you very much, and I'll be brief in this. Thank you very much for the background and the information on this. It's very helpful. My only 2 comments on this is, does TUMWA do like departmental retreats where they kind of, as their departmental groups get together and they understand individuals' personalities and that sort of thing, team building stuff, does that occur?
Yeah, we've done that in the past. With COVID, I'll say we have not done that recently,
yeah.
but we actually engaged with an individual, Jeffrey Benjamin. Some of you might know him. He does
Yes.
leader. Yeah, we had him come through and we worked with the entire staff that was a few years prior to COVID, but through that, we actually at all levels engaged all levels of the organization. We recrafted our vision statement, our company values, everybody participated in that. And then at the management level, we do the strategic planning where we look at, kind of environmental scan of what we see on the horizon, how that could impact employees and stuff like that. But we have done that for sure.
Okay. And the only reason I ask that is, it always is helpful to have solid communications, and I think sometimes those more departmentally or more intimate sort of settings in a retreat sort of away from work allows people to have more open communications and maybe build relationships. I always find that sort of thing beneficial. And whether or not the board chooses to go forward with a formal, I guess that'll be decided. It did appear from the last agenda item that people feel pretty protective about TUMWA, and they feel very positive about it. So I don't know that there's any glaring issues out there. It's just more of like the timing with the new manager. Do you do it in advance of the new manager, or do you do it with the new manager? You understand? That's my question. The timing of it, if the board decides to move forward with it, that's probably my only question. So, thank you.
One of my thoughts on this, and this is just for all of us, is investment-wise. I think anytime you invest in the culture of anything you do, there's wisdom in it. I would just say a wiser investment to me, because I think I think we're pretty aware of the culture of Telma, in my opinion, as is investing that in what she just talked about. And that's it with a new manager, talking about leadership training, retreat, mission building, and continue. And I think that is a great investment of whatever we decide to go forward. And I think, as you mentioned, continuing all the open doors to hear back from everybody. If the doors were closed on that, I would actually say, if we don't know what's happening, then we have to know what's happening to move forward. So I think that would be very fair. But I believe with everything you just shared and the things we see here and the unions things, and I think we're aware. So anyway, that's my opinion, and I just wanted to share in my thought if that's where I would rather invest time and money if we're going to invest time and money.
I guess and maybe I didn't hear Alexis fully. I would like to hear from her. You asked for this item, so I'm just kind of curious where you are before I make an opinion.
And I think you're not quite done with your presentation. And because I wanted to respond to your slide 3 and propose some items for the board. And so if you want to continue on, and then we'll come back to that slide.
Works for me.
Okay.
All right. So in researching and preparing for this agenda item, I reached out to 6 organizations that conduct all-employee surveys. I heard back from 3 of them. 2, I did a deeper dive in and spent some time and met with them virtually to talk through kind of their processes and their logistics. And some takeaways from the research that I did, as well as the discussion, if the board does wish to conduct an all-employee climate survey, the scope, meaning the purpose and the objectives, should be well-defined in advance and be absolutely clear. This will be necessary for staff to help identify and recommend a consultant and a survey approach. And then once a consultant's identified, then we'll need direction, not today, but on topics such as who is the sponsor of the survey, who will the survey consultant be reporting to, what type of survey should be administered. There's a plethora of them, whether they're called climate, culture, engagement, satisfaction. When should the survey be administered? Timing can be everything, and actual impact of the results that come out, what's going on in the community, in the organization, that kind of stuff. Is there specific information that the board wants to get back as far as a report or formatting? How would that look? How should the results be communicated back to the employees? And finally, what will be done with the results? One of the consultants that I spoke to, he commented, if you're not going to do anything with the information, don't ask. So you must be committed and prepared once you have that information to have a follow-up action plan to show that you are responsive to the information. And so if the board determines an all-employee survey is necessary and directs staff to move forward, a planning session would likely need to occur in which some or most of these questions can be answered so that we're able to deliver exactly what it is that you're looking to be delivered. And then another kind of nuance about that I think is worth noting is depending who participates in the planning session and how participants are identified, the planning session may need to occur as a public and an open meeting. And I only mention this as it adds an additional level of consideration when it comes to coordination and timing. So of the 3 companies that I did hear back from, and met with, the board could reasonably expect for 250 employees. An all-employee survey could take between 8 to 12 weeks from the time the consultant is engaged, and that considers a pretty quick turnaround in getting responses to the items that I mentioned previously. And then about $3,300 to $12,500 is what I was given as far as a cost for a one-time survey. Plus approximately 30 hours of HR staff time to coordinate the process on the front end. Obviously, depending on the action plan, that would definitely change as that goes. So this agenda item is a possible action item. Staff recommends the board consider whether it would like to move forward with the survey, and if so, provide direction on scope and timing for a planning session. And then after that's been agreed on, we can work to select a consultant who can participate in the planning session and make professional recommendations based on their background and experience and what the board's wishing to achieve.
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Ms. Jordan, go ahead.
Just quickly, and I'm going to try to connect on my phone. I've got
Yes,
about
that'll
half
be
an hour
fine.
drive. My 2 cents, I go back to my comments earlier. I kind of think the bigger discussion is the timing.
Right.
And now that you're saying about what are you doing with it, and I'm leaning towards the new manager should be part of the discussion of all of this. I feel like if we do move forward with it, it should be in consult and communication with our new manager for all the reasons of the what are you after, what are you going to do with the results. That's my feeling right now is probably these questions, which are fairly, detailed, should be done with who the next leader is. You know what I'm saying? My 2 cents, I'll be on the phone.
And I kind of feel the same way. I feel like this could potentially cloud the process of recruitment. And so I happen to agree with Mr. Dare. And I think the new manager, whomever, should deal with this and look at it from the perspective of how they want to lead the organization. So that's my feeling on it. Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Hill.
Thank you. I think that it's nice hearing that maybe the board is open to doing this. I still think that this is valuable, even if the board feels like this is something that we should not undertake before hiring the new manager. I think that having just a pulse on where an organization is really helpful and helps you have, a baseline for other future discussions. But I do think this is something that we could undertake before we hire the new GM, and we could look at those interviews even being in July and there being overlap in August. Before we lose Mr. Foray to retirement. But I'm happy to address some of the thoughts on the scope and the sponsor and the administrator. If there is if the board is feeling like this is appropriate, because one of the things that came up to me and a lot of the employee feedback that we received on the new GM is that Tumwa is embarking on new times. We're looking at, we're looking at creating essentially our own water, and we are looking at, utilizing new technologies, educating the public, more development in the community, and folks reflected this. And climate studies are really helpful when you're looking at embarking in a new time. And so for me, the scope would be looking at senior management, interpersonal relations, functional expertise, communication, mentoring, strategic planning, teamwork, adaptability, staff development, and leadership. And I think that these kind of studies shouldn't be a scary thing. I think that they're a thing that, we get to see how the organization is doing and how we can improve it. So whether we undertake this before a new GM, which I think would be helpful for a new GM coming into the organization to know where the organization is, or whether the GM undertakes this, I still think it's a very important thing for our organization to look at doing. The sponsor would be the organization, Tumwa. The administrator would be the board. They would report to the board. The focus, the survey, the type of survey should just, like I said, there's in-person discussion with employees, because we only did receive 30%, and that's employees who have time to sit at their desk and write those responses. They're employees that are out in the field. They don't have time necessarily to give us their feedbacks. This kind of approach would ensure that we hear from them. Timing and frequency, if the board chooses to move forward, hopefully the staff could hire that consultant and move forward after this meeting, which we could then look at interviews in July, like I said. And results and reporting, that would go to the board. That would be part of a public meeting. I don't see that any feedback from staff would have to be part of a public meeting. That would be done in a opportunity for staff to feel comfortable and to be able to say what they're thinking. And then follow-up action plan, I think that would be a part of the board in looking for new leadership, and also a part of the new manager when they're looking at how to lead the organization. So those are my thoughts, and I would be happy to make a motion to look at doing this after this meeting with, given the board direction, and happy to hear any questions from the board on this.
Okay,
Guess I'll
hold on. Do we have Ms. Jarden yet? Okay, all right. Ms. Jarden, can you hear us?
I can, I'm on.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Stewart.
Yeah, I've given a bit of thought to it as well, and I was informed by what you said about the timing, knowing that there's a certain period amount of time that you have to do a contract, right? We have to lay out all of this in a meeting, then we'd have to hire a consultant, we're talking at least 2 months. Then you said the process takes 2 to 4 months, if I'm reading this correctly. And so that's a, minimum four months to maximum 6 months kind of period. And I assume we're hiring a general manager before that, in my opinion, sooner than that. So given that it takes a while, my feeling was, I looked at it 2 ways. It's like new manager comes in, and are they going to, some new managers will require an audit. I want to have a fresh slate before I begin, so I know that any audit or financial issues have been identified and put to bed. It didn't happen on my watch, kind of thing. Or I know what I'm inheriting, something is broken, and I'm going to have to deal with that as a new manager. I know that I've been a new manager a number of times, and I was thinking, how would I feel, having one being done or having me initiate one? And I feel like me initiating one is almost a negative act. That's how I felt. Felt like, well, I'm going to do this thing. I just got here, and I'm going to initiate a climate survey. Seemed a little bit, I'm not sure if I'd like to do that as a new manager. I mean, wouldn't mind doing the audit, but assessing. And I thought maybe it's almost like giving the new manager a gift to get started. And a few months after they get here, the results are coming in. They have their feet on the ground, and now they're getting a benefit of a climate survey, so they can help focus their action and activity, and know where some issues may be or where things are great and they want to accentuate or enhance those things. So I was of 2 minds, but I was just thinking, given the time frame, if I was a new manager, I'd rather get the information sooner rather than later, but I wouldn't necessarily want to do it because it might be perceived as, I don't know, not as positive, I think. So that's just, I'm trying to balance it out. So I was leaning towards getting started because of the run-up time it takes to do these things, and then having it, let's say, in their first few months so that they could take advantage of it.
Mr. Dare.
So one of my problems with some of this conversation is that our job is to set policy and budget. We hire a manager. Now, we are responsible for what happens, and so without question, we get to get feedback, we get to look in, we get to see, we get to do all that, and any boards we serve on. If we're not careful, and I have seen boards do this, I've seen cities do this, I've seen the county do, everyone, we have times where we try to reach in deeper than we should. I think this is a general manager's job to set the tone, to set the portion, to do the things, and then and that's what the general manager will get to do. And so for us to prematurely reach in and try to put I think it's better to let the general manager come, and part of it has to do with our role. If we're not careful, we minimize our general manager in the job that he does. Now, there's nothing wrong with us getting information, but we get information all the time. It's not that we don't get information. And we have many access. I mean, she just gave a list of, if we really want, we just get that information and study it. Unless we don't trust the information, which I do. So to me, it has to do with, some of it has to do with our role, protocol, and making sure the new general manager comes in and can help set the tone, whoever that is, of who that should be. Now, we get to hire that person, and if they don't do what we are looking for, then we have a responsibility to take care of that. So I just want to put that in place. That's any board we serve on. That is our structure, unless I'm mistaken. I think that is what I understand my job to be.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, go ahead.
I would have to say that I am more in line with where Mr. Dare's coming with on this, because likewise, I think there's a fine line with us on a board undermining a director or a general manager by inserting ourselves into a place that they should be leading this. I think it's a good idea, and I'm not saying that I don't think we should consider it. I just think that it's going to be critical that we have the new general manager on board and have them involved. Let's have an open conversation with that person and make sure that they're in agreement with what we want to achieve and we're moving down the road. Because it could be that they're going to have thoughts and ideas, things that they may want to know about that we aren't even considering. So I just think if we're going to do it, I think it's when the new general manager is in position. That's my opinion.
Okay. Ms. Jordan, would you like to speak, or? Ms. Jordan?
Sorry about that. I'm here. Sorry about that. I kind of feel that it should be done in consult with the new manager. I don't see it as a negative thing. I see it as something that they should be a party to and involved in. So I think there's value in it, but I also think there's value in these retreat-style department functions. But I kind of feel like the new manager should be a part of this, because I do think it's important, all of these questions and what the questions are and what the feedback, what will be done with it. I think the new manager should be a part of it.
Okay, thank you. And I'll chime in here, and I feel the same. So on page 3 of your survey, you don't have to turn there. Item number 5 is timing and frequency, and I happen to agree with my colleagues with respect to the timing and the frequency. I believe that the new manager should lead this conversation. Taking this up ahead of time, kind of, it has, for me, it has the air that there's something that's very broken, and I don't see it as being broken. I think the system is, show me something that's perfect, and I'll show you something that's not. And so, are there problems in any organization? Of course there are. I mean, when I was in college, I had a professor who would never give a perfect score on a print because he thought that it didn't exist, which was okay. I mean, there was no such thing as perfection. He came really close. You could get really high scores, but it just didn't exist. So I'm more of the mindset with my colleagues to say, let's not cloud the recruitment of the new manager. Let's let HR continue with that process and focus on that and bring a pool of good candidates to us. And by the way, we may not be able to choose a candidate from that pool, and we may have to cast a wider net. I mean, it's just that simple. But that said, I would like for me personally, I just think the timing is everything, and I'd like the new manager to undergo this.
Yeah.
Ms. Stewart.
Yeah, and I think I told you, I was on the fence. I mean, I feel like there is value. I think that the new manager should be invested in the process and want to know the answers and help direct the process. I think it might have a better outcome than something. What I've found is when people aren't in a place, it's almost like something didn't happen if they didn't personally experience it. And I see that even when new managers coming into the city. They don't know the history. They don't know the background. It's like that thing never happened. They might learn about it a year from now, and they might in detail. But I do think there is value in them, whoever it is, participating in this and wanting to do it just like an audit. I want a fresh slate. I want to understand my people. I want to understand their concerns. I want to understand what this culture is. We read in these comments so much about the culture. There is an embedded culture here. And here comes a new manager. And do they fit the culture? Do they accelerate it, enhance it, or do they not understand it? So I think there is a value in a culture survey just to help them even get acclimated to their job, frankly. Because this is a pretty big potential change. So, but anyway, I would like to see us do it. If I didn't put that point on it, I would like to see us do it, but I would like to do it I think in concert, given everything I've heard from my colleagues.
Okay. And again, for me personally, I'd like to leave it up to the new manager. So All right, I think we've heard from everybody. We're going to lose Ms. Jordan if we're not careful. Anything else? Okay, so, Mr. Dare?
This was, do you want to make a motion on this, or would you rather me? I know it's different than you hoped for, and I'm not, I just want to make sure this was your, are you coming to making a motion that we do this after the manager? Or would you rather me to make that motion?
No, I'm happy to make the motion.
Okay.
I'm glad that the board wants to see it done. So I move to make a motion that we work with the new general manager on a climate study after they're hired, and we look at that process during that time.
That's second with discussion. That's cool.
Okay, yeah, and I'd like to have some discussion. So we have a motion by Ms. Hill, second by Mr. Dare. Before we do this, Madam Clerk, do I have any public comment on this item? Okay, all right, we'll close public comment under discussion.
I just want to appreciate this conversation, and I mean that because I don't question that the people who are asking this wants the best for this, and 100%.
Yeah.
And just knew that. I want you to know, sometimes there's disagreements on things, but as we roll forward, it's not necessary that we have a different heart. It's just sometimes how we get there. But with that said, I appreciate your motion, and actually, I think there's wisdom in always coming back and looking and investing. And whoever that new general manager is, I think it's going to be an asset for them in the future, so thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the openness of the board to consider this. And to me, this is something that all organizations should do every few years to just check in. It's really a helpful thing for leadership and for folks to feel heard beyond just the regular channels. So thank you.
Okay, so this is just to allow the new manager to undergo this. What I want to make sure of is that we don't put the new manager on a timeline, because yeah, they have a lot to do once they get in, and I don't want this to cloud how they determine. They may determine that it's essential right up front. I mean, I'd like to leave that up to the new manager, and I'd really rather just have it that the board has desire to see a climate study or this kind of a survey. Once they're established in their new role. That's more my position.
I just want to be clear, though, I don't want a survey, because I think that a survey is what we just received, and I think a climate study is more talking to employees and meeting them where they're at. So that's the only thing that I would like to clarify on that motion.
Okay.
And then I have a question on that. So we're indicating a preference, and we're supporting that, what the expenditure of funds. Would we want to say sometime in the first year? Or do we want to just say, if you feel like it, we want you to do it, or what are you trying to say?
Well, what I'm trying to say is I want the manager to manage.
Yeah, right.
And I don't want to give them more things to do than may be necessary.
I think they'd be thrilled, though, with the opportunity to have the money, and that the board is willing to do this, a new manager.
Again, I mean, I would rather see something along the line of we'll give them the authority to do this and let them make the decision. So that's really more where I am.
Okay, but you did say earlier, I think somebody said, maybe I've lost track of who said what, but that we were supportive, I thought, is what you said. That we were supportive of moving forward if they would like to do it, something like that.
If they would like to do it.
Okay.
Again, if I want to leave it up to the manager. I don't want to micromanage our managers. And I find that, and it's easy to do, regardless of the board that we serve on or the commissions that we serve on. It's easy to micromanage, and that's why we hire really good people to do these jobs. And that's why we're going through this vetting process of making sure that the individual that is chosen has all the skills and qualifications to not only run the organization, but to have those interpersonal relationships with the employees. Mr. Darren.
Yeah, and I agree, we don't want to overmanage. I mean, that's something that if we do, we hired the wrong person.
Right.
But I also want to say, I have no problem. I think if I don't want this job, but say I'm your new manager. I would take this and I would run with it and say I have
Yeah.
support. And I think I think we just lay it there as a beautiful flower they can pick up and run with.
Yeah, I called it the gift.
Well, it's exactly.
If they choose.
They get to manage, and if
Right.
they, we're gonna obviously talk to them, so if there's something that comes. But I do think it's in our wheelhouse that we're saying, we want to continue to know this. And I think it's fair that we have board members who are saying, there's some things I want to know more about what's happening inside. That's fair, that's not over managing. But I would say that it is working in concert with the manager, which does mean they have the ability to lead. So I don't think any of us are against that. I don't
And
think.
Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Dare's point, I think that the exciting part of offering this to a manager and having the money and saying this is something that we suggest you engage in, is that it was made clear to us by the employee surveys that the Tumwa culture is so great. This is going to help them capture that. So I think there's a lot of actual, like when I was researching climate studies and surveys, there's a lot of capturing the good in an organization and ensuring that you keep that and you foster that and you ensure that employees feel that you respect that. So that would be my other comment to that. So thank you. I think the motion is still the same. Okay.
Okay, all right, but we don't have a timeline on the motion.
No, I didn't put a timeline
Okay,
on the motion.
Right, so it's up to them. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. Ms. Jordan, do you have any other comments before we lose you?
Nope, I'm good. The motion, sounds good.
Okay, all right, we have a motion by Ms. Hill, second by Mr. Dare. We have asked for public comment and we have had discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay. All right, that takes us now to item number 9, update on general manager recruitment and direction to staff regarding general manager interview process and date. When will Ms. Atkinson be here? How quickly can that occur? My goodness.
Still Jessica Atkinson, HR Manager. This is another carry forward from the March meeting. During that meeting, we reviewed the recruitment and selection process that resulted in 5 candidates being identified to move forward in the GM recruitment process. And during that March meeting, staff presented a proposed interview process and selection procedure. Motion was passed directing staff to proceed with advancing the candidates through a background check and administering the in-house survey that we already talked about. And the board also approved during that meeting a process for deliberating and selecting a candidate and requested to continue to be updated along the way. So this is just an update and some more information on that. On the background check process, we have engaged with a third-party vendor to administer an executive background check. Specifically, inquiry is being made into each candidate's credit, past employment, education, professional licensure, civil litigation history, and media footprint. Inquiries into criminal history, current employment, and professional references will not be performed until after interviews have been conducted and a final candidate or final candidates have been identified. This process ensures compliance with existing law and also avoids potentially impacting someone's current employment if they're not a final candidate for the position. I've attached a document to the staff report that outlines the pre-interview background screening, what it will entail, and the points that will be considered. The results of that will be part of the interview packets for the board to consider during the interview session. Quick update on the candidates. When I reached out to the 5 candidates to explain what the background check process would entail, one of the candidates did withdraw at that point due to having accepted a position elsewhere. And then I did have one candidate express concern after watching the March board meeting, but agreed to move forward in the process. And so 4 entered background screening. And just this week, that same individual, that one that had some concerns, did reach out to me and has officially withdrawn his application from consideration. So that leaves us with 3 candidates moving forward in the process, 2 from Northern Nevada, 1 from the East Coast. In March, we outlined an interview process, and there were no board comments or suggestions on that, but just to make sure that we're clear, I wanted to bring the process back and just highlight that again and make sure that the board is accepting of the process, and this is for the interview part of the process. So candidates will have equal time before the board to interview. The order of interviews will be selected at random in advance, and will provide the chairman an ordered list prior to the interviews. Chairman will request voluntary sequestration of the candidates until after the interview. Once they have concluded their interview, they'll be welcome to stay if they want to stay for the remainder of the interviews. Each candidate will be asked to provide a 5-minute introduction, including background, education, licensure, capabilities, and why they're interested in the position. And then board members will have opportunity to ask questions. The Q&A session will last for 35 minutes, and then a wrap-up will be the candidates giving a 5-minute closing statement. So the total interview time to be 45 minutes. That board packet for interviews will include candidate applications, resumes, supplemental questionnaires, a summary of the pre-interview background check, and then notes for board consideration. This is where we would identify anything that came out in the background check that the board may need to be aware of or consider, as well as any notes regarding nepotism that came up in the March board meeting would be included in that aspect of the packet. It will include a general manager position description, the key leadership competencies that we talked about earlier, a list of recommended questions, and an interview guide. So in addition to confirming approval of this process, the board should confirm a date for candidate interviews. As I mentioned back in March, it's important once you have candidates engaged in the process to act, otherwise you do see candidates withdrawing from consideration. In the staff report, I presented a couple options, one being a special session in May on May 26th, dedicated to just interviews. A second option, number 2, would be to schedule interviews to take place during the regularly scheduled June meeting. And then option number 3 is an open-ended option if the board has a different idea or thought process for that. So this is a potential action item, and the 2 things that we're looking for is just confirmation of approval of the interview process and the timelines for the interview.
When you say timeline, are you talking about the
A
actual
proposed
date?
interview date.
Okay, good, all right. Ms. Hill?
Thank you. This looks great. Can't wait to see the interview guide and the questions. If we want to add a question, do we send that to you so that can be sent with the packet to ensure that everyone has the same question?
So what would happen is there'll be a list of recommended questions, and Member Breckus brought this up in the last meeting. She has some questions that are job specific that she wants to be able to ask. So board members have the option within the time frame given to ask their questions. The only thing that we're asking is that we're consistent and we're asking the same question of all of the candidates. So you wouldn't necessarily need to submit those to me as long as they fall in line with like the legal interviewing guide and they're job related. You would just want to make sure you ask all the candidates the question. And to clarify, that's not, that doesn't relate to like probing or in-depth questions. Like if you ask a question and the candidate doesn't quite get there, or you need further information on that topic, then you would do that. You know, that could be different based on the candidate and how they respond. But if you have a specific question, you don't need to bring it to me. You can just have it available to ask during the
Okay.
interviews.
And then the 26th does not work for me. I have a TRPA board retreat that day, all day.
Well, then you guys are out.
Can't interview the candidates. Hopefully you guys make a good decision for us.
Hey, it's
So-
me and Paulie.
What were the dates that you were looking at?
Can we just do our normal day?
Because we already have that on the agenda, June.
6:15? Yeah, we can probably.
Can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
I would suggest we just do it during our normal, we already have it on the schedule, we already are there, it fits the timeline, and there's, especially now that we're down to 3 instead of 88, I'm just kidding, 5. Does that work?
Yeah, and that works for me. We have a WRWC meeting that morning, so it could end up being somewhat of a long
Could we
day.
extend the meeting like to 2 or something?
Oh, sure, yeah,
whatever
of course.
time
Yeah,
you
yeah.
wanna
No,
be-
that's not an issue for me at all. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that's the case. And something that I would suggest that we do and that we agree on now so that the candidates understand this. When a question is asked, I would ask the board that we give them a specific amount of time to answer that question so that it doesn't draw things out, right? I mean, we don't want a 20-minute answer, and so that other board members don't have an opportunity to ask questions as well. So and it can be 3 or 5 minutes. I mean, I think 3 minutes is adequate, which forces the answers to be concise.
Great idea.
Okay?
So could we, I like the idea about the regular meeting date and just extending it, and maybe we could take a brief lunch break in between the interviews or we could end our regular meeting, eat quickly, start a series of the 3 interviews back to back to back. So could you just plan that out, like a schedule like that for us?
Absolutely. So are you talking the regular May meeting or the regular June?
15, June 15th, I think they said.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay? And you can, and possibly what you can do is send out, we don't have everyone, we don't have Ms. Jarden here, we don't know what her afternoon is like, but maybe as quickly as possible, you can ask Ms. Breckus and Ms. Jarden if that will work in their schedules as well. But for my schedule, it's fine.
Do you need a motion or a group?
Well, hold on just a second. Do we have any other questions about the process for Ms. Atkinson before we do this? Okay. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment on this item? Okay, all right, we'll close public comment. Yes, looking for a motion, Mr. Dare.
I move to approve option number 2, schedule interviews to take place in June, recommended on 6/15/2022. And lunch is good, barbecue possibly. Thank you.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Dare for barbecue. I mean, I'm
Can I
sorry.
ask for clarification real quick on so the direction that I'm hoping for is clarification on the date and then approval of the actual interview process that we went through. And then I have in my notes to make sure that we specify amount of time for each answer once a question's been posed.
Yeah, I second everything you just said, so without question that is the process
You
of
can't
the.
second it. You have to just.
I know, exactly, she doesn't gonna make a motion. But I would say, without question in that motion, that we have the date, we actually have the process here that we agree to, and what was the third thing you
So
wanted?
the motion is as recommended by staff.
There you go.
How about that? Okay? Seconder,
Still seconding.
okay, seconder agrees. So we have a motion by Mr. Dare, second by Ms. Hill. We have asked for public comment. Is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Please let the record reflect that Ms. Jarden had to jump off for personal reasons. Okay, thank you, Ms. Atkinson. We appreciate the hard work. That takes us now to item 10, discussion and possible action on adoption of resolution number 303, a resolution of the Tumwa, the Truckee Meadows Water Authority approving the U.S. Department of Interior Bureau Reclamation Water Smart Title 16 Water Reclamation and Reuse Projects under the WIN Act, application in fiscal year 2022. Ms. Morris, welcome.
Thank you. Stephanie Morris, Water Resources Manager for the record. I will keep this brief. We filed a application for a grant, Title 16 Reclamation and Water Reuse Grant for the American Flat Project. You'll recall in December, the staff presented to the board and approved moving forward with the project, as well as entering into an interlocal agreement with Reno to cost share for the city of Reno for the project. Since then, the estimated budget and information was presented is the same as is in the application to the Bureau of Reclamation. And as part of the process, we are applying for, we're not guaranteed to get, but applying for up to $25 million for this project. And they require within 60 days of submitting the application that the board enter into a resolution, and we submit that resolution that states that who has the legal authority to enter into an agreement if we are awarded the funds, that the board of the directors, governing body, or appropriate official, in this instance, it's the general manager, the director of natural resources, or the water resources manager has reviewed and supports the application, that the applicant has the ability to provide the in-kind funding, and that the applicant will work with the Bureau to meet the established deadlines for entering into a grant if we are awarded. So that's what Resolution 303 does. And I believe we have to do a roll call vote, but before we do that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the application or the resolution.
Okay. Any questions for staff on this? Mr. Dare?
Do we have to commit to spending $103 million today to maybe get 25 million? Or can we say we're committed based upon the retrieval of this grant? Do you understand the difference of what I just said?
I think so. So the board has committed to move forward with the project. There is one potential check back in with the board once we get the final design for the project completed to move forward with before construction. So in order to get the funds, you can only receive up to $30 million and up to 25% of the cost. So if you do not move forward or the project for some reason became less expensive, you don't have to spend the money. It's based on the percentages.
That's the question.
Okay.
Thank you. I just, mainly for the public. I just want to make sure people are like, hey, we're spending this, so as people understand. But I think it's fantastic, and I think you should continue to find these kind of grants. I think it's fantastic.
I will try. Thank you.
Any other questions? Right, yes, Mr. Ford.
Yes, and the cost share, Ms. Morris, is it 30% Tumwa, 70% Reno for the capital cost? Is that right?
That's correct under the ILA.
And we did also receive a $3 million grant from a different source for this. Is that correct?
Stephanie Morris, for the record. Yes, that is correct. I feel like I'm being deposed. In addition to that, the ILA does dictate that the funds, any grant funds that are received would be allocated in the same way. So 70% to City of Reno and 30% to Tumwa. Thank you.
Okay, all right. He would have asked you, you swear to tell the whole, don't ever buy that. If it was an actual deposition. All right, any other questions for staff?
Well, one other question.
All right,
So, I love this, that you are going after these grants. And it sounds like we have a chance. That's correct? That's your feeling? You want to put the time in?
Yeah, there's a lot of federal funds. They increase the funding for this program. So I think the project's great. It's the first A-plus project in Nevada.
Yeah.
I think we have a strong application. We have to apply every year.
Oh.
So it's potential that we get no money this year, but it gives us a way to introduce our project. And then we can apply in subsequent years as well. So
My other question was, let's say we do get it. It's $30 million. So we have to come up with 73 million, but we got 3 million from this other source. So we have to come up with 70 million, which is split, as I understand it, 1/3, 2/3 roughly. Do we have, $70 million worth between us?
So Stephanie Morris, for the record. So all of this was the same information, and Mr. Bowman and Mr. Enlow walked through how Tumwa would pay and how we have the funds to meet our portion. And the City of Reno has committed equally in the way that they adopted their resolution, that they have the funding. So I believe we are 100% committed based on those, 100% committed to the funds if we can move forward with the project. And none of the assumptions have changed from what Mr. Bowman walked through in careful detail in December.
Well, what I just roughly, it sounds like Reno would have to have, if I did this right in my head, around 42 million or something, roughly. I know we just went out for $60 million bond for 3 things, for a Moana pool, a police station, and the beginnings of a fire headquarters. And I'm not sure, if we have $40 million ability to do debt management, but I'm confident this is such an important project that we at least will have an opportunity to figure that out. But I just wanted to say that, it's not nothing. It's a big amount.
Yeah, and Stephanie Morris, for the record, my understanding, and you should talk to your staff at City of Reno, is that they plan on pursuing SRF loans for their share.
That was a missing piece. Thank you.
And that is information that we have also relied on for how they would come up to meet their commitments for this
Okay,
project.
that really helps a lot. Thank you.
okay. And I feel the same way. This is cutting edge. And, first in Nevada, this is very exciting. It once again, it puts, Northern Nevada, Washoe County, City of Reno, City of Sparks on the map. Doesn't Doesn't surprise me a bit. Ms. Hill,
I'm happy to make a motion for the resolution.
okay? All right, is there any other discussion? Do we have any public comment on this item, Madam Clerk? Okay, all right, we'll bring it back to the board. Ms. Hill, the floor is yours.
I move to approve the resolution as outlined in the staff report.
Okay,
Second?
so I have a motion by Ms. Hill, second by Ms. Dewar. Is there any other discussion? We have asked for public comment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Wait, you need a roll call.
Yeah, I
Oh,
believe.
I'm sorry, roll call vote. Ms. Hill,
Yeah, aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Hartung, aye.
Aye.
Mr. Dare,
Aye.
Ms. Dewar, okay.
Thank
All right, you comfortable?
Great job.
Good, well done. Thank you so much, Ms. Morris. That takes us to item number 11, recognition of Tumwa for receiving the American Water Works Association Exemplary Source Water Protection Award. Ms. Steeland and Mr. Croft, welcome. Did you want me to call you
I'm good.
Kara? No, I'm sorry.
Vaughan.
That's right. Well done.
Good afternoon,
Cara and
Chair
Christian,
and Board.
welcome.
Cara Steeland, hydrologist for the record.
Christian Croft, hydrogeologist with Tumwa for the record.
And we have a brief presentation for you today. It's exciting that Tumwa has been selected as the recipient of the American Water Works Association 2022 Exemplary Source Water Protection Award for large source water systems. So this is a national award that's awarded to one utility from 3 different size categories a year. So we applied for this, and so we just want to take the opportunity to give you a brief overview of our source water protection program, since now we are nationally recognized for it. So a key component of our program, if you remember, is the 2020 Integrated Source Water and 319H Watershed Protection Plan in the Truckee Meadows, which was approved by this board in September of 2022. So this was a very collaborative, locally driven, multi-year stakeholder effort led by NDEP. We would not have received this award without all of the partners involved, including NDEP, Reno, Washoe County, Sparks, One Truckee River, the Truckee Meadows Stormwater Permit Coordinating Committee, Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency, and the Consultant Resource Concepts, Inc., among many other stakeholders and participants. And so this plan revolves around an online tool that has designated source water protection areas throughout Washoe County, and project profiles to identify priority projects for the region, and that is now available at washoecountycleanwater.org. There's a great online tool that shows all of our source water protection areas, so the public can access that and look at where those areas are that are important to protect our groundwater and surface water supplies. So in the past year and a half since the plan's been implemented, and well before that, but we kind of have it under this umbrella plan now, are multiple elements to protect our sources of supply. So I'm going to just go over a couple of them and then hand it over to Christian. So we've been using our Truckee River Fund projects to leverage match funding for many years now, and those are a great resource for us to be able to protect our sources of supply, since Tumwa does not own most of the land around our sources of supply. So we really rely on those collaborative projects, and as well as the collaborative projects we're completing with One Truckee River throughout the watershed, particularly the River Restroom Project. And we also outlined in our application for this award our new partnership with the organizations and agencies in the headwaters to increase the pace and scale of forest management work to decrease the likelihood of high-intensity wildfires. So that starts with our pilot project, with the Ladybug Project, that was approved by the board in March of this year. And then Christian will discuss several of our other current programs more related to kind of development review and spill response.
Thanks, Cara. For the record, Christian Croft, hydrogeologist with Truckee Meadows Water Authority. Some of the continuing efforts from the 2020 Source Water Protection Plan include a recent update of our regional spill reporting notification process to improve communication and coordination amongst Tumwa, the NDEP, Washoe County Health, and the Reno and Sparks Environmental Control Departments. We also worked to continue to review development projects, from Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County as they come in the door, and provide comments if there are any source water concerns with these projects. And we also continued the implementation of the 2020 plan that Cara just outlined, which included updates to the City of Reno Title 18 code, which adds source water protection component to that code. Implementation has gone smoothly, mostly because it's a simple and effective method of communication and notification, and it relies on education and awareness. It really revolves around businesses with potential to contaminate source water are then required to submit a quick online form and notify TOMWA. It's a really quick, easy form that Cara mentioned earlier, the website. TOMWA then reviews that information to determine if there are any concerns based on the type of use and proximity to drinking water sources. Any new businesses of concern located within those critical source water protection areas are then contacted to inform them of the drinking water supply nearby. So again, just letting them know, hey, you've got a well nearby or a drinking water source nearby. Please be aware of that, and we'll continue to share information. TOMWA started receiving online submittals back in March of 21 and received notifications from 75 businesses in 2021 and contacted 16 of them, again, to share information about their processes and our drinking water sources. And then looking forward into 2022, our big goals are to continue our collaboration with the upstream organizations to develop forest management partnership, installation of additional restrooms along the river as part of the Truckee River Restroom Project with One Truckee River. And I think most importantly, the big push this year and the next year will be to work with Sparks and Washoe County to get source water protection notifications integrated into their business license submittal process, similar to what was just completed in 2020 with the Reno Code. And finally, another thank you to the regional partners that Cara mentioned earlier, but also to a big thank you to TOMWA's in-house technical experts in the natural resources, IT, GIS, and water quality departments. Really a group effort and a job well done all around.
Okay. Any questions? Well, congratulations. I mean, I think that deserves a round of applause. Well done. Yep, putting us on the map again. Here we are. Another box clicked. Do you need anything from us?
Informational.
Just informational?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. So what does the award look like?
It will be a plaque, and Andy will be accepting it at the American Water Works Association ACE conference in
Okay.
June.
Okay, very good. All right. Okay, thank you so much. All right, that takes us now to item number 12, water supply update. Mr. Hauk, welcome. Mr. Gephardt, we're going to open up 12 and 13, presentation on the proposed conservation, communications, and outreach plan for 2022.
Good afternoon.
I think it's going to snow.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair, board members. Bill Hauk, Water Supply Supervisor for the record. So I'll be brief, but I think I have some good news for you at the end of the day. So key takeaways for this month, we came into 2022 with snowpack in excess of 225% of normal, but the 3-month stretch, January through March, was the driest stretch since these snowtail sites have actually been installed in the 1980s. So we set a dubious record for that. The official NRCS April 1st snowpack number was 60% of normal this year, third dry year in a row. Currently, as of this morning, this says 53% in your packet, but as of this morning, it's 56% of normal. And that's up from last week. I think we're down to about 42% basin-wide between those 13 sites. So, and as you know, there's a big storm on the way. And actually, it's the juiciest storm I've seen since December, over the next 2.5 days. So very, very good news. Latest model runs for river flows prior to the last week and a half of wet weather, we're showing we would have normal Truckee River flows through about the 17th of December, but that has, although we haven't got the official NRCS forecast, which we run through our models, we know it's going to push things out to the end of September, probably into early October, which is really positive for us. So as with that, no drop storage will be required this year to meet customer demand. If you look at the top row here, Lake Tahoe, number 1, what I'm just illustrating here is how the forecast kind of progressed since January through April. And you can see in January, we're projecting 160% of normal runoff. And the last forecast, April 1st, about 46%. So things really went south on us with no snow, so to speak, in 2.5, 3 months. This graph here, black line, just shows you the amount of water content in the snowpack from the start of the water year. And you can see basically since the 1st of January, we really had no storms except for what I'll call maintenance storms for a period of 2 months and 3 weeks until runoff actually started occurring the 3rd week of March. And this graph just shown that compared to the previous 2 years, we actually started runoff about a week earlier than last year and about 3 weeks earlier than the year before. But you can also see in the black line where it dips, we've been adding to the snowpack over the last week and a half, actually. I'm sorry, Mr. Yep, the black line is this year. The yellow line is 2020. What I was just trying to illustrate here is that we were running off about 3 weeks earlier than 2020. The melt-off occurred earlier. So third dry year in a row. Last projection, Lake Tahoe was supposed to come up about 55/100ths of a foot if you were to close all the gates and have the runoff come in, but that will be bumped up. You can see the forecast through the end of the year here. Lake Tahoe will rise. We're not sure how much more, maybe another 3-4 inches, although if this storm pattern continues, it could be more, but we will be down to the rim probably around, Halloween timeframe. Fortunately, Boca Reservoir is going to fill, at least on paper, and that's great news, and that's going to provide us normal river flows at least through the end of September into October. And Boca? Yeah, 40,870. Yeah. This is, our upstream storage right now is in better shape than it's ever been. Of the almost 319,000 acre feet stored system-wide between Tahoe, Boca, Stampede, Prosser, Donner, Independence, about 57,000 of that is owned or operated by Tumwater right now. It's about 20%, which is really great. And these slides just show how much water is in each reservoir currently and how much, if any, Tumwa water is in each of those reservoirs. And this graph I did for you, Ms. Dewar, based on your comments last board meeting. This is basically an area graph showing Tumwa storage in each of the reservoirs since October 1st, since the start of the water year, and projected through the end of this calendar year. And you can see that the little asterisk up top on the top of the black line, that's going to be when we're at our peak. So about July 15th, we'll have the most storage upstream, about 67,000 acre feet stored upstream between Donner, Independence, and all of our Troa water, which is really nice. And 41,300 we're going to have in Stampede. That's pretty much all due to Troa. So, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah. And because we have so much storage and because we are going to, have river flows probably into October, we're looking at normal operations this year. No drop storage required, and should be very similar to 2020, the last time we didn't have to use drought reserves. So with that, I'll take questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so going back to that previous graph that I asked for, it shows that Stampede, so our storage in Stampede would be running out about now, is what you're kind of saying? It's the tan color here, or the?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's Lake Tahoe, the one.
Oh, that's
tan
Tahoe.
one. That's
Yes.
Tahoe, yes. And
So
it's
around
not-
Tahoe, we won't have any more flow over the.
Yeah, and that's
dam.
because Lake Tahoe's projected to go below the rim.
Right.
So I want to get all of our water we have in there out and up into Stampede so we don't lose it.
Gotcha.
So we're moving it out.
Okay. So, I mean, that really helps. And then you have to manage, the federal water master has to, with your input and other people's input, I assume, make these decisions.
Yeah, we manage our own water and we coordinate with the administrator. He has to coordinate with other parties because when we do something, it creates an opportunity for other parties.
Well, to your
do
point,
things.
we are trying to get our Tahoe water early, because we're after April, we won't be able to get any according
Right,
to
it could
this.
become stranded this fall, so we want to get it out
Exactly.
and move it up into a reservoir.
But he
where-
has to also say that works for everybody, or can we just independently?
We can pretty much independently
Okay.
do it, yeah. We have, one of the, being the, the earliest
Larger-
signatory party to TROA, it was Tumwa and the tribe who basically hammered out many of these provisions, and we carved early priorities for many of these things. So,
Very good.
so good news.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
I will share with you that probably over the last 3 months, I've had more questions about water than I've had in the last 4 years, in just the last 3 months. So I think the public is realizing, especially with these back-to-back 3 months this last year, 3 months the year before of over 95 degrees, no rain. I think now we're entering this period, and you just said, we've had the driest quarter ever, and I don't know when the ever began. Do you know?
These sites were installed in the late 1980s, so it's been 30
1980s.
years.
Okay,
And it's not a historical record, it's a historical record of
Quarter.
the Snowtell sites, which are
Yeah.
placed throughout the basin.
right.
So, but-
For Snowtell for the quarter.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I'm seeing water rise in the general population's consciousness more than I have in years. And I wondered what other people are hearing and also what we're thinking kind of as an agency. The next item is about conservation. And everywhere I go, people keep connecting the water with the growth. And they keep saying, how can any of us approve developments? There's a perception that we don't have the water. We've heard from you many times about all of our planning, our storage, 5 back-to-back year droughts, that we could still be okay. Not just 5 droughts, but 5 historic droughts, I think is the way you put it. And yet, we're not at 5, but we're at 3 droughts, and maybe they're not historic, like they're major drought years, but maybe they're not the biggest ever drought years. So I guess what I'm just wondering is just from the board and also from our staff, do we have different messaging at this point? How do we maintain the public's confidence in us to be managing? We know what we're doing. We know what you're doing. You tell us all the time, we read all the stuff, we feel pretty confident. But we still have to individually be making, or collectively at our bodies, be making these development decisions. And that is starting to be the narrative that I'm hearing. Any thoughts, either from you or our council, our board here?
Yeah, well, if, I'll go through this and maybe I'll answer your questions from that and we'll go from there.
Hold on,
Okay.
hold on just a second, Mr. Dare.
Oh, go ahead, I can go right after you.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to make note of is even though we've been in a drought, and I don't know whether anybody else has noticed this, fire service certainly has, and we have a couple folks from TM here. I have more weeds in my yard this year than I have seen in a very, very long time. And they just came up, and I have and they are green, it's truly amazing. Even with no water, I've seen more growth, which frightens me for our fire service because we're seeing all of this growth around the region. I know it's not just in my yard. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in South Reno. He said he's had more weeds this year, just more emergence than we've seen forever, even in a
Different
drought.
weeds.
Yeah,
Different.
yeah, even in a drought, so.
Well, Mr. Chair, even in a drought, right, I mean, I'm a gardener, timing's everything to your point earlier. Getting water at the right time that seeds are ready to germinate really creates growth, right? And it may die off quickly if the water doesn't continue to come at the right time. It's the same thing we experience with our fruit trees, getting that rain or the cold snap at the wrong time when the flowering is happening, et cetera, or the fruit is forming. It could be just perfect and it could be just terrible. So that's what I've observed as a gardener, but I'm interested what you have to say.
Yeah, I'll just tee off on what Andy had to say. Even though this year's better than last year, we're going to be doing more, stronger messaging, and I'll let Andy talk about all the things we're going to be doing this year.
Yeah.
Gephardt.
For the record, Andy Gephardt. Yeah, and you're hearing that narrative from the public. That's what we always hear. So it's reaching your ears more now, but we hear it all the time in that, how can we have growth? And that's a message we have to deal with. It's a tough one. You just saw Bill's report and how we're looking good in our region, contrasted with news reports that came out last week of the worst drought on record. And it is bad. It's bad everywhere. But what we look at, and we're really trying to focus on, we're always in a drought, pretty much. We live in a desert. We're a high country desert. We only get 7 inches of rain a year on a good year, on average. So we're always in that dry cycle. We look at water supply more than drought. The drought word is tossed out all the time, but really what's important for our community is water supply. And that's what we're trying to get the message across this year. Is what's our water supply look like? How are we looking from a water supply standpoint, despite the drought going on, always going on? Good 1 year, bad, horrible for 5 more years. But what's our water supply going to do? And that's a tough message to get across to people. And I don't envy you for having to answer those questions when they come to you. So according to the plan, we have normal conservation this year, which means we don't do any extra messaging. That's not a good plan. We understand that's not a good plan. We're doing more. Last year we had an enhanced conservation messaging, and we're doing more this year than we did last year. Keeping in mind, we're in better shape this year than we were last year. So we're in the 3rd dry year in a row, and we're in better shape now than we were last year. So that's a hard message to get across to people. But we really have been working on that. We've been working, and I'm sorry, Alexis isn't here.
She's coming out. Is she on the phone yet? No, she left.
Well, say this year, from a communication standpoint, it's on your packet and it's on page 4. But there's programs that we're doing throughout the year to try to enhance that communication. In particular, for one of the questions from Alexis was how to get the public involved a little bit more in what they're doing in conservation efforts, and how to really, whether it's a pledge or what have you. And we are doing Conservation Heroes, which we're going to source out to the public. And how do you conserve? What are ways that you are conserving? What's your landscape tips? And we're going to highlight them on social media and on our website to really try to groundswell and get some more public involved in their in the conservation efforts. We're also looking at, on May 5th, a tour of community leaders at Glendale Water Treatment Plant. This is a direct result of messaging and communication we heard from other community leaders that might be counter to what we would consider the truth or what we would consider as important. And so we are reaching out to them, and we're going to do a tour so that they can all be on the same page, so that they can understand and, river quality, what's important to say, what do we look at, what's important to communicate to the public, so the public hears a similar message, no matter if they're hearing it from us or from One Truckee River. And we're working hard on that. We are also doing August 1st through 7th, we're doing a drought resiliency week. And I think this goes directly to what we're trying to get across to the public. How can we be in good shape when all you hear about is we should be in dire straits? All you hear is the sky's falling, there's no water. How can we? Well, we're going to really concentrate that whole week on communicating why this area is different, why planning that was done 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, why we're reaping the benefits of it now, why efforts that we're undertaking now, hopefully 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years in the future, they're looking at us the same way we look at the people that came before us and said, this is why we're in pretty good shape. This is what we're doing. And then the last thing we're going to do is a conservation poster and photo contest. That's going to be in the fall. to, once again, get the public involved, get the community involved directly in why conservation is important to you and how you're going about your efforts to enhance the program. We're going to do a fall cool down again, even though, we hadn't done one prior to last year because we'd been in normal conservation, but understanding the situation, understanding where we're in, we're going to do a fall cool down again. And all those efforts, along with one of the big ones that we're doing again this year, Smart About Water Day, and I have a flyer for you so you can take home and hang on your bulletin board and not forget. But it's on May 7th, Smart About Water Day out at Lazy 5. And we bring in different entities that all have an interest in water, and we're all under one roof and try to help out the public to be able to come and get the answer from a lot of people on a lot of different topics. We'll have Tumwharf will be there, we'll have Nature Conservancy there, Regional Planning will be there, a host of other entities, and we'll really try to, show the public how, while we all do play a different part in the process, we're all connected in the region. So we're looking at that. We're feeling pretty good, but the efforts is there constantly to try to get more communication out that we are okay.
Yeah, so I agree, education's it. I've had the honor of doing some travel around our state at this point in my life, and part of it is we keep getting a lot of information from the south that just permeates what happens up here, which we're not going to stop because it makes good news. But I think if we change the conversation and use better wording, one thought I did have for us, and I just did this yesterday actually, where our city did an update. We sat down, did an interview with Tumwa, with me on it. It's a city council update. But I'd encourage all jurisdictions to do that, because if we have the same message going out, it's getting hit on, and it gives an opportunity for your citizens in your area to understand what you do as well. But the other piece that I wonder, we do an air quality thing on the news all the time, where the news actually will share it. Have we thought about utilizing them, giving them information, rewording it, calling our water resource update, making sure, and we could get it to them, and they could, Weatherman talks about rain all the time as part of our problem, probably sometimes when they're like, oh no, but then they can stop and say, but our water resource update, look how we're doing, and something that gives the counter on a regular basis where it's not just us trying to trip people, but going to where people are to get information. So just a thought for you.
That's a great idea. Yeah, we have the people here that can
Yeah,
help.
well, we see the air quality on there all the time, which is another board I sit on and something I'm involved with. And we got there and we saw COVID being something that they were willing to put out there. Water's a conversation that's out there, so I don't see any reason they wouldn't jump on that. Just an idea.
Well, last year we had what's called a media and a stakeholder presentation day. So this Friday I'll be doing the same thing, presenting to media. Marlene sent out and blasted the news agencies, and a stakeholder presentation as well to kind of get the word out. And we think last year by having that meeting, we kind of set everybody up. We got the information out and got our message out early that, hey, we're okay. Yeah, we're in a drought, but we're okay. But yeah.
But I'm talking like almost like a daily, weekly, something that people get used to hearing and hear better words. So they're like, so even when the media says there's drought and we live in the desert, they can say, but what's the water resource update? Because we've taught them a better thing to look for instead of whether it rained or not.
Yeah, water supply.
But I would caution us as to how we word it to, not discourage conservation.
No, it's not a
Hey, you're doing a great job. Yeah. This is how much water we're saving, and our water supply is very stable. Thank you for conserving, because you're helping to stabilize our water supply.
The message is always to conserve.
Right.
Is to be responsible with it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but I just don't want to mix that message whereby people think that, and we do. We have a very good, stable water supply, but we still need people to conserve. Ms. Dewar.
Yeah, thank you. I really like Mr. Dare's concept of a city council update. I would love to do that. If someone at Tumwa would be willing to do that with me, a back and forth interview, I think that'd be really, really well received. The other thing I want to mention is that, what I often go back to, and I don't have probably enough details, is this WC3, this Washoe County 3 that said we're going to grow within our means, right? We're going to not exceed our population demand. And is there a history of WC3 in our water plan, or where would I get that?
Thank you. I believe the Western Regional Water Commission would have that data. That's something they're involved in. They were involved in it from the start.
Right.
And they've got to be involved in every update and the calculation that you're talking about.
Yes.
Available water resources per population projection,
Correct.
right?
Right.
So they should have that they should
You know,
be able to
we
get
that was a ballot initiative, as I recall.
Correct.
And it passed by a pretty good margin, and it basically said we would live within our means and that our population projection would be calculated, and we wouldn't, over appropriate, so we wouldn't get in a situation like Southern Nevada. So there was like a check, a stop. And I talked to people about that. Many people are new, most don't know about it, and this is information of first receipt for them. But I'd love to be able to, have a little fact sheet on that. I think that would be very helpful. And then finally, you said this conservation contest and you were thinking of doing it in August, and I just wonder if we should do it sooner while school's still in session, or, at the front end of the summer versus the end. What do you think?
It's tough this spring, to roll something out at this point
Gotcha.
in time with the schools. It's very hard. It's a lot easier to introduce it in the fall.
Gotcha. Okay.
Conservation is still on people's
It's
mind.
a year-round thing.
It's a year-round thing,
Right, okay.
which is why we opted for Conservation Heroes at the beginning and the Boaster Art at the end.
What was that?
It's why we opted for the Conservation Heroes.
Heroes.
That is going on in the spring
Okay.
and into
I might have
in the
missed
start
that
of
one.
summer.
Okay. Conservation Heroes. And then this tour on May 5th, is this, since many of us are familiar, this is for people that are not us, I'm assuming. This is other leaders
Yes.
in the community, right?
Yes,
Okay, to get them on this page.
to get them on this page.
Okay. And lastly, what is a fall cool down? I don't recall the term.
You don't need the same amount of water
Right.
in the fall.
So you mean start tapering
Yeah,
your
start
water.
tapering. So we do a lot of communication that, hey, it's time to maybe let your sprinklers rest or turn them off, a couple days. You don't have to have them on 3 days a week and 4 times a day in September and October. You can, just a spritz here and there can do the same thing. So that's why.
Okay. Thank you.
Hold on just a second. So, Ms. Hill, I know you're online. Mr. Anderson is first, and then you're up.
So with that being said, I just wanted to say thank you for what you guys are doing. I mean, I know I've said this before, but you guys are walking that tightrope of conservation, but rest assured, we have supply. And I think the innovative ideas you have here, the different programs you're running are awesome. And I would say just continue down that path because, yeah, I don't envy you guys, but I love the Conservation Heroes one. I'm not sure if I ever told you a story, but I got a nasty letter the last time we had a real bad drought and things were really tight, and you all reached out saying, hey, try and cut back a little bit more, try and use a little less water. So that's what I was doing. My HOA said, well, your lawn isn't looking as good as it should, or something like that. And I copied the little note from Tumwa saying, thank you, you've cut back your water this amount. And likewise, the note about asking us, hey, we want to conserve as much as we can. I sent that to the board saying, this is why it doesn't look as pretty as it normally does. So I just want to say thank you. You guys are doing a great job. Keep up the good work. And yeah, let's recognize the people that are doing a good job conserving in our community.
Thanks.
Okay, hold on. Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Uh-oh. Ms. Hill? We're not even getting full words. You're like Max Headroom.
That's not going.
No.
Water.
Miss Hill? Miss Hill, we're not getting anything. So here's what I'm gonna have you do. Can you hear me? Okay.
Heroes Do you hear me?
No.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Hear you.
Okay, we got you now. Start over.
Okay, do you hear me now?
We got you. Awesome.
All right, thank you. I just want to commend the team on the water hero program. It's chatted with Andy about last year, support our community and conservation efforts. And I really appreciate you moving that forward. And I was thinking, you know, if there is any money in the budget to give folks lawn signs for commending them for doing those actions, that would be something that maybe we should look at investing. But I really appreciate how aggressive this approach is. And I think having Tumwa come to the Board of County Commissioners would be a really smart move as well. So I'm very open to that and excited about that approach, and getting school kids involved and understanding how connected the water system is. It's a really important thing. And, you know, how do we start? We start with the kids. So great job, team. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Any other?
Wanted to add one more thing. You may see this summer, hopefully you do, on 4 of our vehicles, we're going to be doing new vehicle wraps on the conservation cars. Something a little more flashy. It'll have our sign day watering right on both sides of the car and probably on the back too. So
Okay.
be on the lookout for them.
Wonderful. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Oh, one quick thing. Sorry, I didn't mention this at the beginning. As you know, we have a conservation team and we have partners with good standing in the community, good standing outreach in the community. But I do have to commend Cami LeRae. She did the lion's share of this pretty board report you get from us on the conservation. It would not look like that from me. So Cami is the one to thank for the beautiful graphics and the nice charts. So anyway,
Thank you so much. All right.
and here's your flyer. We even allow lawyers. There you go. Fast one.
Do you need any action from us? Because you are for possible action.
Oh, that's because we joined together, sorry.
Do you need anything from us, Mr. Folletta?
I don't know if Mr. Gephardt needs anything from you.
I don't need anything from you. If you're happy with the direction we're going,
Okay.
we'll continue going that
You could
direction.
just approve the report as is to tie it off, but I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I would, I have a question now, and I would move to approve the report. So the question was, just to reiterate a point you made, we're just water, the regular watering days, odd even, 3 days a week.
Correct.
Okay. And you'll let us know at a future meeting if we have to step it up.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And even our constituency or residents may wonder why we're not stepping it up, but we'll have some explanations.
We'll have normal river flows throughout the year.
Yep.
And we have normal conservation messages
Yep.
and our normal conservation practices.
Good. All right. So anyway, Mr. Chair, I'd recommend accepting the report.
Okay, have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, have a motion by Ms. Dewar, second by Mr. Anderson. Is there any public comment on this item, Madam Clerk? Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I heard an aye from Ms. Hill.
Well, I
Thank you
would
so
take it
much.
as that too.
All right. That takes us to item 14, informational report regarding Fish Springs Ranch agreements and status. Mr. Enlow and Mr. Zimmerman. It's got your name here. Okay, it's got your name here, Mr. Enlow. I just reading.
You taking a break? What's going on?
Yeah.
He's on vacation.
Yeah, he's sitting in the back row. Mr. Zimmerman, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. John Zimmerman for the record. This item was requested by Member Breckus back in February, just an informational update on the Fish Springs Ranch LLC agreements, and so I provided that in the staff report. The one update I have for you today is that, and just as background, Vidler Water Resources Incorporated owns Vidler Water Company. Vidler Water Company owns Fish Springs Ranch LLC, which holds and owns the water rights at our Fish Springs Ranch. They also are subject to the two agreements, the water banking agreement with Tumwa and the infrastructure dedication agreement with Tumwa. So the parent company of all those, Vidler Water Resources, has entered into a purchase agreement with D.R. Horton, where D.R. Horton would acquire and I think merge into, or have those companies merge into them. So that transaction, in my understanding, has to be approved by the shareholders of those entities. We've heard from our contacts at Fish Springs Ranch that that entity will still be a standalone company and they'll operate in the same way. As far as Tumwa's concerned, the water banking agreement and the infrastructure dedication agreement cannot be terminated without mutual approval of the parties. And so as far as our understanding is that that would proceed in the normal course as it has in the past. But just wanted to update you on that, and I'll take any questions.
So I do have a question. So D.R. Horton is a home builder.
Correct.
We don't see this as a conflict of interest with respect to them owning the water if other home builders want to purchase? How will that occur?
Yeah, our understanding is that Fish Springs Ranch LLC, who has the water banking agreement and the capacity in the Fish Springs pipeline, is going to operate in the normal course and provide water, allow their water rights to be committed to Tumwa's system between all other home builders.
Okay, with no preferential treatment to D.R. Horton.
That's our understanding.
Okay. Interesting. Mr. Dare.
So how do we, is it our responsibility to make sure that's true? Is there any regulation that we're trying to keep up with, or is it even our responsibility, though it might be odd, is it our responsibility to care and be involved in that? And if so, what kind of regulations do we have in place?
I don't think there are any regulations in place, but those water rights have to be dedicated pursuant to Tumwa rules. We're a party to the banking agreement and the water infrastructure dedication agreement, and so we'll be monitoring and can provide feedback to the board if anything begins to change or if we hear complaints from home builders that they're not being allowed to, purchase water rights for future development as they have in the past.
It just seems like there'd be a wisdom to put some accountability around it somehow. I'm just saying, maybe there is, but it seems like it's still loose, like you're waiting just to see instead of inspect. And I would say that something like that, to protect it from someone believing it's a conflict of interest, that we can say, oh no, we keep up with that. I'm just listen to that conversation.
And the reason I brought this up is because we've added this to our water supply, this amount of water in our North Valleys. And so I just want to make sure that there's no preferential treatment that could possibly occur, because, I mean, if Fish Springs had been built, D.R. Horton stepped in and said, we're going to partner with you guys. Tumwa was not a party to the contract and not a party to any of those agreements. I wouldn't worry about it. It's like, okay, well, they did this deal. But Tumwa has become a party to this. And in fact, I believe that we still own all of the infrastructure. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's what kind of gets my antennas up.
I think the answer to your questions is under the contract, both the water banking agreement and the infrastructure dedication agreement. The intent of those agreements is to supply, water rights for future commitments to the North Valleys. And so if that stops happening with the other home builders and D.R. Horton steps in and stops selling to them, that's where we can look at the contractual remedies and go about it that way.
Sorry, one more question. So what would be the recourse if we found something we don't like?
I think that's where we look at the contracts and talk with, Fish Springs Ranch LLC, who is the contracting party, and D.R. Horton is the parent company, and make sure that they're still complying with the intent of those two contracts, which is to supply future resource commitments for future development in Tumwa's service territory.
I think it'd be wise to look into make sure what those contracts are. I mean, what did that look like? And I say that just because people are people. And I'm not saying anybody has any intent that's bad, but if we're on the hook for some behavior of what somebody else does, it'd be nice to know what we're able to do. Just, I think it'd be wise.
I think the answer is both of those agreements, require Fish Springs Ranch LLC to make those water rights available for future growth and development within Tumwa's service territory, both the water rights and also the capacity and the infrastructure.
Okay.
We just don't want it to smell like Fish Springs. Okay.
I think, Mr. Chair, I'm just something for Mark. I think I would like to get a little bit more in-depth briefing of this offline, just to kind of get caught up and make sure I understand how this is working. Thank you.
Do you need anything from us?
I do not. This is just informational
Informational
only.
only, okay, all right.
Thank you.
You so much. We will close item 15, and close item 14, take us to item 15, which is the general manager's report. Forgive me, Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one thing by Mr. Houck's prediction, I think that by the time I retire, there will still be a very small amount of water over the rim at Tahoe. So I'll leave the organization in good stead there, and almost the most amount of upstream storage we've ever had, about 60,000 acre feet.
Yes.
So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any questions for the general manager? All right, we'll close that, take us to item 16, public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed in wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? Okay, close public comment, bring it back to the board. Board comments and requests for future agenda items, Mr. Dare.
I just have one comment. Paul, I understand why your grass is not green, but Vaughn, you need to pull your weeds. I don't understand what's happening here. No, I just want to put that on the record. Thank you.
And in the backyard, I am mechanically removing them. I am not using herbicide because we have lots of little animals, and so I am doing that.
Good to know.
So I'm getting after it, I promise you. Any other comments? Okay. That takes us to item 18. We are adjourned. Well done.